Hello, it's good to be with you and present the grey matrix to you right at the beginning of this session. Let me tell you a little bit about how it came about. I began Christian ministry in the country of Laos back in the 1970s, and it was my first experience of Christian radio, and I was trying to figure out how to do it. And we were making radio programs, but I had my suspicions that maybe what we were saying, what we were talking about, wasn't really going to be understood. There may not be anybody listening. And that's the big question, I suppose, which haunts all of us when we start making programs, when we start writing content. Is anybody listening? Is anybody reading this? Will they understand what they're hearing? Will they be interested in what we want to say? And these are big questions, very important questions. And then in 1974 I got to attend a programming workshop where Dr. Jim Engel was presenting his, what became known as the Engel scale. And that was so very helpful for me. It let a lot of light in. I began to see things that I hadn't seen before, and so I went back to Laos very excited because I could now put my finger on what was going wrong, and I started applying that to what we were doing. But I had a problem with the Engel scale, and that was that it mixed up attitude with knowledge and awareness. And I knew that that was something quite separate. I knew that it wasn't just what we were telling people, what they needed to know, what they needed to understand in order to believe, but it was also a matter of our relationship, their attitude, their openness, their willingness to change. And this was a different kind of thing. So we had to separate out then the knowledge, what they need to know, from how they feel and how open they are. And that is a very important distinction. And so I put together what became the grey matrix. Two separate axes. One was the knowledge, the awareness, and the horizontal one was attitude and openness. And that was what I presented to Dr. Engel at the end of my studies there, before I left, the two-dimensional model, and that is what eventually became known as the grey matrix. And that's the main thing that it's trying to say. There are two significantly different elements to our communication, what we impart to people, what we teach people, but also the relationship that we have with them, how we feel towards them, how they feel toward the gospel, toward the person of Jesus, toward the church. And maybe through our communication we can help change that so that it's positive, and then when it's positive, then they in effect become what we might call a ripe harvest field, one that's open to change, anxious to hear more, to learn more, hungry for the gospel, and wanting to follow Jesus. The big lesson then is to know where people are in their pilgrimage. How important it is for us to understand how they feel, how much they know, how much they understand before we start talking to them or writing material, writing content for them. This is very, very important. And we know too that we can't reach everyone at once. People are at different places. We have many different audiences, and we have to select which audience we are talking to. We have to know what interests them, how they're feeling, what they're concerned about, what their hopes and dreams are, and where they are in their understanding of God and Jesus Christ himself. So let us pursue that. Let us use the grey matrix to help understand that better, so that we can do a better job. One final note, a very interesting passage from Scripture, John chapter 1, in verses 14 and again in 17. It talks about Jesus coming full of grace and truth. And there you have it. You have those two elements that he combined together in his whole ministry. He wasn't just telling people what to do. He wasn't preaching at people. He was getting to know them, coming alongside them, sharing in their pains and hurts, but also blending these together in his ministry, so that they were both present all the time, and he drew people to himself. They loved him and followed him wherever he went. And he becomes our model as we work on Christian communications together, to try to understand it, to try to understand our audience, and to feel drawn toward them, so that we can share the blessings of the gospel with them in a meaningful and attractive way. God bless you.